Yeah.
Do you guys think
So
that difficulty settings are gonna be, they're gonna be the top tier one is gonna be as because The Witcher 3, a lot of people said that that game wasn't very hard for them on
yeah,
what's the Death March, right? That's the highest difficulty,
yeah.
correct? Yeah.
Now, well,
I found it hard.
Reminds me. Well, they had. There's a very good old story about the Witcher one. I'm laughing because I remember.
You can
Apparently,
get it
you're
out.
really funny here.
This better
Because
be a knee slapper.
I remember the face that because the interface wasn't great, and some people who were like constantly gloating about how good they were at playing RPGs. People that were in the gaming industry, in the journalist side, and they received a copy of The Witcher. I don't remember if it was I think it was the first, and they were killed like 20 times in the tutorial.
Mhm.
Because the game wasn't that difficult. By the way, in the version that is available currently, you have 3 levels. But originally, you only had 1, and it was even harder than Dark Souls. And people were complaining a lot because it's funny because they complained that the game was very hard, was done but by people on the journalist side of the gaming industry. One of those people that always say that they liked hard games, this hardcore RPG that were really hard. So I don't think that Cyberpunk is going to be that difficult.
Damn.
They already did 3 levels with the original Witcher.
Man, I would want that. I want a super hard difficulty. I guess, I mean,
Well,
if there's mods, they can mod that in, but I don't know. I'm a masochist like
I guess
that.
we're going to have a survival. I don't remember if it was about, something very funny about The Witcher in the difficulty. I don't know if it's my thing or there's more people that had the same not issue, but when I started playing, let me remember which expansion was Hearts of Stone. The difficulty was a jump, which were compared to the game. And I
Yeah,
believe you needed a certain level to start this expansion. I was like 10 levels more than the one required to start this expansion. And I thought that it was not very much more difficult, like unplayable, but it was way more difficult than the game. I believe they made a jump in here.
yeah, I remember
Mhm.
that Frog Prince being particularly annoying.
Yes, the fucking frog.
That bastard.
That's the only enemy I had really, really, really issues to beat in that
But
game.
isn't in The Witcher
Because then
3 when you die, every time you die, does the difficulty scale down slightly? I don't know why I feel like that's an actual gameplay element or aspect, but it just felt easier after you died like 50 times, and the game kind of gives
well,
you a
I never
break.
get to die 50 times, and I
Well,
don't know.
not
I don't
50
know.
times. It's a hyperbole, but you know what I mean? Like, does it scale down
I
slightly?
didn't notice if it is. Maybe I didn't die enough times for it to be downscaled.
So you're saying I'm a noob, Mad Queen? Is that what you're saying?
No, no. With the frog, I died like 3 or 4 times. I believe that 3 or 4 times are enough times to die to notice
Hmm.
a downscale. Maybe you learned how to do it,
Maybe it's placebo.
and
Maybe
that's
I'm
why
just
you
driving
thought it was
myself.
easier.
Yeah, true. That's true.
Because later with the main character, which name I don't remember, that you have to fight with him in the sword and he doesn't die at the end, which is the main character of Hearts of Stone.
I actually haven't played
It
through the entire Hearts of Stone.
it's great,
Yeah.
and I loved this combat. Then I'm not going to comment because it would be
Yeah,
a
don't spoil it.
spoiler.
Don't spoil it.
Well, it wouldn't be exactly a spoiler, but I would tell you the exact way of
I mean,
beating
I've already
him.
heard things here and there, so it wouldn't be a big spoiler, but yeah. I'm only like
All
half
good, yes, all good.
full gear.
Then play it. It's fantastic. I loved it.
I chose to do Blood and
Well,
Wine first. I don't know why. I just wanted a change of scenery a little bit.
also a great expansion.
Yeah.
And you have this house you can decorate.
At the end, right?
Well, in the middle.
Oh, do you in the middle? I must have missed that part.
Yes, yes, the princess, I don't remember her title, gives you a mansion,
The
but it's
Duchess.
at the beginning, in the first third of the expansion, I believe. Yeah, something like that. Can we go to the rest of questions that were in
In the
the
chat? Yeah, yeah.
comments? There's another one that Ali did some time ago.
Sure.
That he asked if we can expect different body types in the character creation of Cyberpunk, and I'd like to point out that in the character creation that is a work in progress. And by the way, the version that we saw on the demo that's been released was an improved version regarding to what we saw at E3,
Mm-hmm.
because at E3 there were less options and we were explained a lot of things.
Oh, okay, yeah,
I
yeah.
think there were sliders. The first, I think there are sliders and are able to
There's sliders on some
customize the
things.
detail. Yes.
And then the other things, there's like 10 different options. In the demo we saw,
Yeah.
the public one. So some have
Uh,
sliders,
some
some don't.
some
I believe
some
that-
of the
sorry.
engines that are being worked on, especially CDPR's one, is still kind of like last generation for certain technology. So there's a bit of a limit as to what you can expect to see. What a good example of this would be like height, right? A lot of games you can customize your character a lot, but you can't customize height. And why can't you customize height? Because the animations don't allow for alterations to height, whereas some of the newer engines can utilize that and right away give you the option to change your height from really tall to really short.
That's a good point.
It's a limitation thing. So in some regards, don't be overly surprised if there are a handful of limitations. They're probably there for a good reason, i.e., basically the code or the engine's core not being able to give you that option. This really comes into play for first-person games that utilize a full character model, not a partial or non-existent character model. A non-existent character model would be like, so when you're in first person, you look down, you don't see your body, right? You see a little shadow on the ground moving around.
Right.
The jump from that technology to the jump from where you're able to look down and see your body, there's a ton of stuff in the code that is just not present between those two versions of themselves. And so stuff like that is like there might be a handful of tiny limitations, but they're engine slash console generation specific issues, and will be, it's something that the developers want to fix and are definitely looking for unique ways to tweak or to change or to modify the stuff that they can do. But don't be shocked if you run into that as a problem. So saying that they are 100% interested in offering every cosmetic choice that you have in the pen and paper game, but some of that stuff is just not
feasible.
You're just not able to add it into an actual video game yet. It's getting to the point where we're going to be able to, because like in the pen and paper, you give yourself a tail, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think we're going to see that option, because there's a lot of technology that goes into that is going to cause issues, but eventually that technology will come around. So so yeah, that's just man, I can't wait until like some of the projects that I get an early peek at right now are just mind blowing. Like they're really like vertical slices of technology that they're working on for like the latest technology that they're working on today. You're not going to see that technology for another 4 years.
So where's
being invented today.
Sorry to interrupt you. So where does Cyberpunk fit on that scale of impressive things that you've seen in the industry? Is it up there?
It's pretty up there. Yeah, it's pretty up there. The engine runs, the best thing that I can say about the CD Projekt Red engine right now is that the thing runs smoothly. It runs
Buttery
on
smooth.
the current consoles with so much optimized. Everything is optimized so well that you're going to be able to get a much better experience than you could get from if this game had been made in half a dozen other engines.
Right.
And
That's so sick.
This is really good to see, because this is something that more studios need to focus on. Is it doesn't matter if you have Frostbite and you can make your computer look really cool if your optimized to crap, and you have to sit through 5 minutes of loading screen every
Yeah.
15 minutes.
Like 40 frames per second. It's not really worth it, right?
Yeah, and limited to like 30 frames per second. It's like, what? Why?
What's the point? Yeah.
It's what's the point when, I mean, you look at Unity. Unity came out with one of their latest trailers showcasing what they can do with a first-person shooter, and it was like, wow, this is almost on par with like Doom.
Yeah. Have you
Like,
guys seen that Unity Megacity demo with the flying car and the gigantic cyberpunk-esque city? Man.
Yeah, I think I don't know if that's the one that I have. I got one of these like rip-off games on Steam.
Yeah.
We have yet to showcase it. There's like 2 minutes of content through the entire thing, but it was cheap enough and funny enough that I was like, okay, I'm gonna make fun of this in a kind of tongue-in-cheek way.
Yeah.
Like, it's really interesting. So yeah, there's like, it's really cool to see what is being worked on, what's on the forefront of the technology that we're seeing. And I definitely have to give props to CDPR. They are keeping up with technology at a really good pace. But there will come a day where it's like there's going to be an engine out there that is going to blow everything else out of the water, and things will consolidate into that engine, which is
right.
I mean, there's both good things and bad things about it.
So in terms of leaps, like from Red Engine 2 to Red Engine 3, and then from Red Engine 3 to Red Engine 4, I don't know if you know this, but what's the leap look like? Is it a substantial, big jump, or is it more on par with, how big the jump between 2 and 3 was?
I'd say it's a pretty substantial bump. It's not something that you're necessarily going to see a lot of. Like the graphics are really, really solid. They're really great. But graphics are one of these things where it's like, I can look at a character that's got like 4K resolution mapping, and it's got more animations than I can count, but I'm only ever seeing 5 characters on the screen at once. It's like it's like the fighting games, right? It's like the fighting games in the last generation. You had the Soul Caliburs and the Tekkens and all this stuff, and you were like, oh my god, this looks so amazing. Fast forward now, and how have those games improved? Basically, not much. Despite the fact that they could be doing so much more now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of one of those things where it's really kind of odd how you watch as things progress and as things tweak and change, and it's like, would you rather have, I mean, this is a great example, right? Like Skyrim had, maybe 10 characters on the screen at most at any given time. It's like, I remember some of the fight, the big battles where it was like, well, there's 10 guys over there and there's 10 guys over there. I'm just saying that doesn't look like a war to me. That looks like a minor skirmish.
That looks like a neighborhood scrap.
But when you look at CDPR and you look at Cyberpunk 77, what we're seeing dozens and dozens and dozens of people on the street at the same time, including cars passing in the distance and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that's something that gets me more excited than some of these other games where you're looking at what they're making and you're like, well, this is really boring. It's sure, Anthem, sure, it's got nice graphics, but the fact that there can't be, the fact that there's like 2 civilians in the entirety of the Anthem game in the story mode area that walk around, and none of them are interactable. It's like, good lord, that's disgusting. I mean, I hate to say it, but that's disgusting. Yeah. Like that's not a game. That's a freaking lobby. It's like you might as well made it into a repeatable Flash animation, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
It's like, why bother having 4K if none of the characters move, if none of the characters do anything, if they're not moving back and forth. Like, I remember one of the original I think it was Mass Effect 2, where it's like you had actual aliens walking around, going back and forth, doing stuff.
Right.
It's like, how did they go from that to a world where 2 NPCs have a repeating path that takes them from 5 feet that way to 10 feet that way, and then that's it. That's all they do. Everybody else just stands around looking at out into space for some stupid reason.
They're all on drugs.
Like, yeah. So what I think what we're seeing with CDPR is we're seeing them keeping up with both graphical fidelity, optimization, and world depth. And when they're keeping all of those things and they're playing, they're giving each of those things an amazing amount of focus and power and resources to make sure that those things are going to be top notch all the way through. I think we're going to get a better game overall.
Mhm.
So
That's so sick. Can't wait. So I think
Well, I have more. There are more questions in the comments that I've been writing them down because
sorry.
because the
Also-
comments go really fast. And there was one question that I loved that made a little discussion inside the chat about being vegetarian in the game. And why do I find it funny? Well, see, in the early 90s, in the law of the game, there was these changes on the global climate. There were some series of natural disasters in the world of Cyberpunk, and there was a change in the global climate that made it impossible to grow crops. Only the biggest fields are in Alaska and in Canada. So there is a food shortage, and most of the food that is consumed is artificially created. So I don't think you can be vegetarian and you can either be omnivore because you're going to eat quote unquote plastic all the time. Which is the problem in this universe. The problem is in this universe is that there is a shortage because Petrochem. Excuse me, because Petrochem owns most of the farming fields, and these farming fields are used to grow the genetically engineered yeast that is needed to make the CO2, that is the fuel that the cars use and the planes use and everything uses, that was invented by Biotechnica. So for economical reasons, Petrochem doesn't want to use these fields to grow crops, which I believe is going to be mentioned in the game because at some part we read in this in the trailer there's this scene that when a corporate is watching some footage from a drone, and in the top we can see some headlines, and one of the headlines says yeah.
Sorry.
One of the headlines says that some assets from Petrochem was stolen to end I don't know what. Something like they intended to steal something from Petrochem to
I
share
remember
it.
that. Yeah, I
I
remember
don't
that.
remember the exact words. So this sound like they lost part of the farming fields. This is speculation, obviously. I don't know. It seems that this is something that's going to be discussed in the game. But I found it funny. I don't think that you can be vegetarian in this universe. It's quite difficult to eat real vegetables in this universe.
Mm-hmm. It's all about the kibble and the scop, right?
Yeah. So there's a thing I want to add here because it's really funny and I think it'll get people going. So one of the things that one of the scientific studies that I've been watching recently is trying to do is they're trying to make an edible meat-like substance out of human poop.
That's gonna be a pass for me.
Okay, this is something that we didn't need. This is something that we didn't need. Okay, let's stop.
We're ending the podcast right now.
So I'm just saying,
guys.
as far as
and you said
in
enough.
Future dystopian world.
You said enough. You said enough. Stop it. This guy's
I know what the title. When I publish this on my channel, I know what the title is gonna be now. I know what the title. It's got to have poop in it now.
And then the next question someone asked, if you can marry other NPCs, and please correct me here if I'm wrong because I'm not 100% sure if this is official, but I believe that the dev commented that you could have long-term relationships with another NPC. Am I correct in here?
Yeah, they've said that, but that doesn't necessarily mean marriage.
Yeah.
That just means.
Well,
I mean, it kind of hints at that. Actually, you're right. But no, they haven't confirmed marriage, but they've confirmed the long-term relationships, like you said.
Every time I think marriage, I think back to like the early 2000s in all the MMOs that you could like get married in.
Yeah.
And how all the role players would get dressed in their in these suits that you could buy in the game, or dresses, and then they'd gather in a city and they'd walk around and walk around, and it's like, wow, that's some awesome stuff there.
If there's a
Yeah.
role-playing community within Cyberpunk 2077 like there is in GTA right now, we'll probably see people getting married just like that, or something similar.
Yeah, that would be pretty hilarious. Yeah. I was trying to set up a joke, but I don't know how I don't know how to finish it. It was gonna be like, yeah, all them nerds doing that. I hated being at each one that I went to every week.
Okay, you're already gonna go down as a legendary jokester from your poop little segment.
My poop chair. Yeah. My poop thing. So yeah, it's really interesting, and I think, I mean, there are people who they take this stuff kind of, pretty seriously, and it's like, so games are like, you can do things that you don't normally do. So some people, they do want to hook up with every NPC they possibly can. Other people, it's interesting to note, will hook up with a single person, period. And that's really interesting. That is really, really interesting.
Well, that's the thing of an RPG, that you can live a life and then second gameplay and live life. And
find yourself a man who only beds one NPC. Ladies in the chat.
Yeah. But it's fascinating.
Excuse me, what did you say, Neil? I didn't hear you.
I said find yourself a man who beds one NPC in video games, to any ladies in the chat.
Yes.
It's a telling sign.
Well, not really, because in games you usually do life. So maybe in real life you're a slut.
That's true.
And then in games you go
Cyberprude.
You're right.
Yes.
you're a Cyberprude, Andre Velasquez. That's hilarious.
I don't think you can be a Cyberprude, can you? Oh, I mean, I guess you can, but people generally aren't.
You probably can. People is worried about survival more than stupid moral rules of the early 21st century, I believe.
Yeah, and seriously, I gotta point this out because it's being mentioned in the comments now. It's like, I don't think you can get an STD in Cyberpunk, because I'm pretty sure most people have had their bits swapped out with robotic bits. So I'm just saying.
Yes, there is the Mr. Stud and a midnight lady.
Yeah. I hope that pops up in the game. I so hope so. That would be so funny.
I would be. This is something I don't know who commented before in the comments that everybody always finds something to be offended about in the game. This is what's going to offend me. If we didn't have the Mr. Stud in the game, I'm going to be personally very offended.
We're gonna write letters to CDPR if it's not in there. You guys with me?
The most famous piece of cyberware of the whole lore is not in the game. Yeah. This is going to personally offend me as a nerd.
I agree.
And a Midnight Lady, of course.
Yes, both of them have to be there.
I'm gonna answer, and I suggest we all answer Emmanuel's question: whether how would we make, or how would we design our own character? Well, first of all, I'm one of these people who would rid pretty much everything biological from myself as quickly as possible, and then from there it would be for skills in like class archetypes which are not in the game available. I would definitely focus on being rocker boy type class, with like, if I could multi-class with a little bit of
How are you going to be a rocker boy? You don't have the abilities of rocker.
I think he's just saying theoretically.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Theoretically, if I could, that would be my preferred pick. That would be like rocker boy / what's the nomad. But within the confines of what we get in the game itself, I think a lot of characters and personality stuff that we are going to get to play with haven't been revealed yet. So I'm not going to talk too much about how I'm going to build the character exactly, because as far as the combat goes, the combat is going to really focus on
Chupacabra.
Sorry, a good comment.
And melee.
I love that comment too.
Which one?
Sorry, I don't know if we're looking at the same one, but if I can play a Netrunner, can I hack a Mr. Stud?
Yes. I was going to answer that question, because with the bot of the net that we saw in the gameplay, we could see that you can actually hack you can hack
Different modules of people.
implants. You
Yeah,
can
yeah,
hack implants of the
yeah.
enemies with this Wi-Fi thing you have. So yeah, maybe you can hack Mr. Stan.
If you have an erection for more than 6 hours, please see your doctor.
Well, this was a work in progress, so I don't know in
Hey,
what line did the progress.
hey, I need to respond to this because it got called out. No, it did not go over my head. My reflexes are too fast. If anything went over my head, I would catch it.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Can you remove augmentations like Mantis Blade or permanent? Someone asked this in the past. According to the law, yes, you can remove augmentations and you can buy biological limbs at REO Meatwagon, which is a Megacorporation that I believe doesn't exist in 2077 and has been replaced by the neural net
Traumatine.
protocol.
Oh, okay.
But that's a theory. I'm not sure about that. In the law, you can do it. If cyberpsychosis is going to be a thing in the game, which is something that we don't know, it's going to be excuse me, it's going to be a thing in the background of the game, but we don't know if V is going to be affected by cyberpsychosis. But if V is affected, then we will need to be able to remove implants, because otherwise we will go cyberpsycho.
Have they not already said that we won't be able to go fully cyberpsychotic? I don't know.
Yes.
That's kind of like got some hidden meaning in there. But
Yes
to
and
me,
no,
that seems like
because
you can't get
yeah,
cyberpsychos.
let me make an intermission here.
Sure.
Going full cyberpsycho means losing absolutely all your empathy points. But if you have 3 empathy points, you are already crazy and the game can really screw you.
Right.
That's not being a cyberpsycho, but that's being really close. And you have 1 empathy, I mean, you are about to lose control all the time, so you may not 100% control your character if you play it. It all depends on if they are going to create a gameplay based on a cyberpsychosis if you have a very little empathy. You won't be able to go 0 because that's what happens in the law. The moment you go 0, then your game director takes your character sheet, breaks it, and says, you just lost control of yourself, that's it, create a new character. So that's why you won't be able to go cyberpsycho in the game. But being close to cyberpsycho, it already has some implications.
Right. I think in Deus Ex, isn't there like an equivalent in Deus Ex if you like mod yourself overclock or something, and you start to have like
and
gameplay?
no, because the grid. Sorry,
I was just gonna say then you have gameplay repercussions like that.
Yes, you quote unquote had gameplay repercussions, but they weren't real because the only real thing you had is that your eyes blinked every now and then, and you heard your doctor saying, "You should remove implants. You should remove implants." You didn't have any real consequence to that.
Right.
I mean,
yeah,
it wasn't solved. If it wasn't solved perfectly well, not even half well. I guess that they trusted that the warnings were enough for people to not try. Which is like not knowing gamers. Trusting that gamers won't try because you're warning them that you will have some consequences is like not knowing gamers. And then when you didn't have any kind of consequence at all.
Right.
But the thing is that if they turn cyberpsychosis into a thing for V, you are going to have consequences. And I'm expecting. Well, I'm looking forward for that. They didn't say if they're going to implement cyberpsychosis. I really hope they do, because that will be super interesting. Super. That would be amazing.
Does it bring a tear to your eye?
Yeah, but I did a video about how would I implement it in the game that I believe it's too crazy. And if they did that, I would go crazy, because this was one of the most. I mean, Cyberpsychosis was created into the pen and paper game to avoid the characters to become too OP.
Right.
And that's great, but it had a law. And the thing is that under an RPG perspective, when you were losing humanity, you were playing the character differently. You used a different type of vocabulary. It all depends on how your game director wants you to, Maybe suddenly, if you had 1 empathy, maybe suddenly your game director said, "Well, you just draw your weapon and shoot that person," and because I say so. Yeah. You went crazy, you don't control yourself, and you kill a random person.
Right.
So that's other interesting things about going cyberpsycho, not reaching 0 and then losing control, I believe.
I mean, I think we'll have to manage that for sure, because we already saw the humanity counter on the Cyberware at Victor's office. So that's definitely something we're gonna have to keep in mind. And I agree. I hope Cyberpsychosis is in it. As far as I know, I don't think they're really. I wouldn't say they're not too keen on it, but I don't think they've really confirmed yes or no for sure.
No, I don't think they're. I don't think they're overly keen on it for the main reason that you then have something that can constantly ruin the story or ruin the player's perspective sometimes with them not realizing it. It's the same reason why you don't in every survival / open world game why you don't automatically add like a hunger and thirst system into the game. Or
but it's completely different. Completely different because in here we're talking about having consequences for something, not something that is implemented just because. If you're warned, okay, your experience is going to be ruined if you don't do this. Like it happened in Deus Ex. Something bad is going to happen if you keep putting implants. Then you keep putting implants and you have consequences, and you have some way of removing these consequences by removing the implants. I don't think that this is going to be having consequences is different from having some kind of mechanic you're forced to do, which will be the equivalent of eating and sleeping in a survival game.
Yeah. I want to answer Oscar's question because this comes up a fair bit.
Let's answer a couple more questions, and then how long have we been going? Been going for probably an hour 45. We'll start wrapping.
92 minutes.
Oh, that's it. Okay.
We in here it says start streaming 92 minutes ago.
Okay. All right. Well. Yeah. Anyways.
So the one question from Oscar is that can we discuss about the issues with the possible censorship in Sony? And all I want to add to this is that Sony is more than willing to offer strategic lens flare placement.
Like they did in Devil May Cry.
Like they did in Devil May Cry. Yeah. So if Sony wants to censor major games or not allow them on their platform, that's entirely up to them. All I can say is, and this is something that we talk about on our podcast quite a bit, is that censorship doesn't work. And the more you try to censor something, the more it comes around. So
right.
If Sony
we're not going to go along. You have on that. Neon you have a video on that as well, Neon, right?
I think I have a couple, yeah.
You can watch the videos.
Yeah, lots of
and
videos,
we can answer questions about topics that we never talked before. For instance, we have a question of the Marine. Can we play as a Ripperdoc? The thing is that Ripperdoc is the slang for Medtech. That is a character class that is playable. Medtech is a type of techie. Techie is one of the 3 playable character classes in the game. So yes, we will be able to play as a Ripperdoc. So next question, cars customization. Are we going to be able to customize cars? I believe they
said,
right?
there was a French publication, I don't know how to say it, something. Yeah, they were interviewing Machai Pietras, I believe, and he said there would be some certain level of customizability to vehicles. Now that doesn't really tell us too much, but there's hints there. We don't know for sure, but yeah, there's hints.
It's something that it's one of these things where if you can add it to the game, right?
It all depends. It all depends on the you need to spend on development to add. I mean, there are a lot of things that you can add to the.
However, I want to point this out. Is that they do have, I believe, at least 3 artists who their sole job is to create cars. So if they've completed the basic list and they just keep on pumping out stuff, and they just add this to the game as filler content or have it for an expansion where imagine an expansion pack that comes out for the game that's all about like racing, right? And the Nomad story. That would be pretty cool. That would be something that could go over really, really well. So, it's obviously there if they want to do it, but can they fit into the game with all the resources and whatnot? I mean, that's the only thing holding them back.
I think they can also
have people.
Sorry, I think they can also distribute things to DLC, right? They don't have to cram
Yes.
every single thing into
Yeah.
the base game. They can have some ideas that they keep
Well,
close to their
Night
chest.
City is a city that's pretty stuffed with people, so I believe that they need to have a lot of different cars in the game just to avoid it feeling too repetitive. Even if in the background, well, actually, Matquinpo Internet. No, actually, I am so sorry, but this is called.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And there are some we've been having some issues with Discord recently. It's been really frustrating.
Yes, I'm so sorry, but this is Discord, and this is there's nothing that we can do about it. I would
Mhm.
love to correct the things that don't work properly, but I'm afraid that it's impossible. So going back to the cars, we need a lot of different cars in the game, even to avoid the game looking, repetitive. And also, if we did have racing horses in The Witcher 3, I believe, I believe that if we saw things on The Witcher 3, on Cyberpunk 2077, we will see more and not less. So I'm always constantly saying, if we saw that at The Witcher 3, we can see it on Cyberpunk, because I'm taking for granted that we will see more and less than The Witcher 3. And also, we have there are a lot of people, 3 people designing cars, I believe, and maybe they are
There's
not
a few
only
of them.
designing the cars, but also designing the customization of the cars in a way that we
Mhm.
can have a lot of options.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to. Is like they have the staff available to create a humongous amount of customization, and it wouldn't be hard to, add that into the game as a little side thing. And it offers like, it's like clothing, right? It's like your character clothing. If you have a couple artists that just pump out content, you can create content for pretty much forever. Like look at Skyrim's clothing mods.
Yeah,
It's like a never-ending list, and there's something new every single month, and
yeah,
there's some really good stuff that pops up every
yeah.
so often on there too.
Didn't you even
So
mention that like they still have like 40K concurrent players based off of the fact that they have mods? I 60?
60K,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
You said that last time, right?
It's
Yeah.
it's like, good lord, there's so many people still playing Skyrim, and the main reason for it is because there's always something new to
Mm.
get. I haven't played just because of time constraints. I haven't played Skyrim for the past like 9 months. Right, it's
Right.
still installed on my computer. I still have all my mods installed, but I just haven't touched it because I just haven't had time. I went back to Nexus to just kind of review and LL to kind of review what had been updated, and my goodness, almost everything on my list had been updated.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, not going to get into this yet. I'm going to put this back, push this back. Probably, I might not get into Skyrim until like sometime mid to late summer. But it's so cool going to your mod list and seeing, pretty much all like, hey, this needs to be updated. There's an update available. Because then that means there's more content, or the
Yeah.
content works better, or
That's a good
so
feeling.
on and so forth.
As a gamer, that's like
And that's
probably
a
a good
really good
feeling.
feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good feeling. I
Oh, yeah.
want to tie this into Cyberpunk, just because like a lot of developers in the industry know and realize how important modding is to their communities and how much it can maintain a game in the public eye.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Cyberpunk is going to. It might not be as friendly as Skyrim is. There's very few games that are,
Right.
but they may have a considerable amount of modding available to us. So yeah, it's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Next question. Someone asked about VR in Cyberpunk 2077. I am so sorry, but Adam
No,
Kaczynski already confirmed that no VR, this wasn't on the plans.
No. Maybe
yeah,
in the
no,
future though. Never know.
it's just too far away.
Yeah. Yeah.
And here's the other thing. So a first person forced perspective is different than a VR first person innate perspective.
It takes so much more
So
computing power because you have to render the two lenses for each eye, right?
yes, there's
Mm-hmm.
also what happens, and why there's a significant limitation to this as well, is that there is when you script, you walk like, okay, so the scene from the trailer where you get out, you walk up to the lady, the professional lady, and her her bodyguards kind of hit you to the ground and then like, hold the gun on you, and then they talk, and then you get up, and the game is forcing you to go through a lot of this stuff, and it's restraining your movement as far as like where you're able to look a fair bit in some of these cutscenes ish, not full cutscenes, but cutscene ish type things, right? You cannot translate that over to a VR game. You just can't. You run into so many problems because suddenly where your character is looking, where the game is scripting you to look, is not where your head is looking. And then suddenly you're being it's a vomit comet because it's one thing leads to another. So this is highly, highly, highly not able to be done with existing technology. It requires a significant amount of going into it and recoding it from scratch. Surprisingly, it's far easier to make a game VR compatible that is first person and third person than it is to make a strictly first person game to be VR. A strictly first person game, to translate that into VR, is an incredibly difficult process. Whereas taking a game that is first person and third person, translating that over to third person is basically a guy can do it in a month or less working by himself.
But it's not only about how difficult, and if it's not on your plans,
it's also,
it's not on your plans.
The technology surrounding it is not like very good at this point too, right? And from a company that likes to do things perfect, they're not gonna do a haphazard kind of VR port and it have issues or graphical fidelity, things of that nature. So maybe in the future, you never know. Borderlands 2 VR came out how many years after Borderlands did? So you never know.
And they had to restructure the entire game in order to do that. They had to go in and change all of the baseline codes. They had to change all of the animations. They had to change all of the way that they handled any scripted events. Completely had to rip that stuff completely out, which is why I know I'm kind of a harpy when it comes to this, but this is why I do not like first-person only games, and why I think that overall it is a bad move for developers to do first-person only games, because you are limiting your technology in a massive way. And when it comes to future progression, updates, technology jumps, this kind of stuff, you've basically put a gigantic doorstop on the other side of the door that you're trying to open. And it's like you might as well just rip down the door, because getting the door open is going to be basically impossible. And this is it's not just me. At the GDC a few years ago, we really covered this. We talked about this, how important this was to offer. And
Cyb, every single time we make a podcast together, we end up in 10 days.
All right, moving on.
Cyb with the pitchforks outside of first person.
Rabble.
So I believe we can wrap up here.
Let's wrap it up.
We've been going on for almost 2 hours.
Almost 2, yeah, for sure. So, that was awesome. We covered a lot of bases, to be honest. So, next week we are going to Cyb, your channel. I believe your channel.
Yeah, I think we're hosting it next week, so that'll be really interesting.
Yeah, so it's been awesome. Go check out each of these guys, including Last No Meal. I know he wasn't here. A little disappointing, but Triple S League, they cover a lot of general gaming news as well as Cyberpunk 2077. They do a lot of podcasts, so if you guys are into that, go follow them on their channel. Mad Queen, you already know, she's the Cyberpunk lore queen, the expert. So go check those guys out, and be sure to be back on Triple S League's channel next Sunday at 12 p.m. Mountain. You guys can convert that or whatever. And until next time, thank you guys for joining me.
Goodbye, everybody.
See ya.
Goodbye. Thank you very much for being here with us.
Yep. See you guys next week.